Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter Podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
Okay, so let's rock and roll with the podcast. I think we're gonna dub this Canadian Muscle Off Season. I think that's what this episode will be called, because the three of us are in a little bit of a little game train right now. So let's start with you, Breton. Where are you at right now, and what is the projected game plan for 2021? Has anything changed since we last spoke? Is everything going as planned? What's going on?
Yeah, so for me right now, I'm pretty much like peak bulk as of right now. I'm like low 190s right now, which is actually pretty much like the heaviest I've ever been. I think in like 2017, I got up to like 195 maybe. So I'm right around there right now. So I'm pretty much as heavy as I'm gonna get. I'm actually planning on potentially maybe doing a little mini cut here soon. I'm not fully sure. As of right now, but honestly, training has been going phenomenal. I've been really lucky. The past few months is honestly probably some of the best training I've gotten in. I feel like I'm progressing pretty much every week. A lot of my movements are really progressing nicely, which I'm super happy about. And I mean, geez, it's been since 2018 now since I stepped on stage. So I feel like I've had a lot of good progressive training under my belt over these past few years. And I feel like I've made some pretty good improvements to my physique. So really it's just kind of putting everything in place, hopefully fingers crossed that, everything goes forward and is fine with shows coming up in 2021. Still worried about that. Honestly, I thought the Edmonton show was going to be fine in October there back when we were supposed to compete. Obviously that was shit. So I'm just honestly keeping my fingers crossed. I'm kind of just preparing for anything right now because I wouldn't be shocked if things still got postponed this year. I mean, obviously depending on how the next few months go. But overall, yeah, things have been great. Obviously, I had to stop prep in the summer there when we found out the show was canceled. I kind of reversed out of there a little bit, and then I have definitely been a little bit more aggressive these past couple of months with gaining and just really making sure I'm in a surplus and just training really hard, essentially, and just trying to make as much improvements as possible before a potential prep for this year. And that's pretty much it, man. Things have been going good. No complaints.
So what's the 2021 target?
Right. So 2021 target will be, I guess, since the show's switched there, it'll be kind of more of the Calgary show there in October is going to be my main focus. Definitely. And well, if everything goes as planned again, I would love to do Worlds. I was saying that before, and I think that was kind of like, it's always been a goal of mine, hearing about it years ago and everything. And I think it would just be one of those bucket list goals for me to go and just really give it my all and see where I compare against everyone on the playing field, and just be as competitive as possible on that world stage. So ultimately that would be a great end goal for me. 2021 Worlds, doing that as like kind of my main show right after the Calgary show, but that's the plan as of right now.
So just the two?
Yes, just the two as of now. Yes.
That's handy that it'd be October, November, get in, get out, you're done.
Exactly. And that's just it, because that's what kind of was very rough for me in 2018 season when I did win that pro card. And then it's like, oh shit, I got to compete again within, the year to stay pro. And then the closest show was 12 weeks out from that. So maintaining that condition for that long was really rough. And I definitely learned from that. So now exactly having that ability to be like, okay, you have a show and then it's probably like, I'm going to say maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks between the two. So it'd be pretty ideal to kind of set some back-to-back peaks up for that.
Nice. And obviously with travel and stuff within the country is still up in the air, much less going down to the States. So
that's just it. That's why it's kind of like prepare for anything. But like I said, those are my main two goals as of right now. And that's what I'll continue to work on until plans change or I hear otherwise that I have to switch out. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. For anybody watching, the three of us here in Canada right now, I don't know how things are within the country as far as traveling goes, but I know with the States, like there's a mandatory quarantine upon returning. So I guess that'll be something you'll cross when you get there, which is still, basically a year away. So there's not
exactly
really any point in putting any mental effort into that right now because it's still so far away and everything can change. I mean, hell, we're back in lockdown a year later. So
That's just it, man. That's just it. Things are so unpredictable that it's just like I'm just focusing on my own shit and just, doing what I got to do until I have to worry about other stuff and, things changing. So, but that's a game plan for right now.
awesome. Connor, yourself?
I feel like Brenton just pretty much told my story because it's pretty similar. We all stopped prep around the same time and then started to get back into an off season, transitioned, and I did take like a maintenance period in the summer for a little bit, which is nice. It was a nice break. Did it do anything in the long term? I don't know, but I was pretty happy when I was on it. So since then, though, I've just been gaining weight, and it was kind of the same with Brenton. I was a little slower at first, and then I got just a little bit more aggressive because I was just like kind of like, come on, let's get it going here. We don't have that much time left. So I weighed in this morning. I think I was 197.8. So it's been up. It's been going steady. And especially over the holidays, since actually I had some paid vacation from work. Then they pay us for the Christmas break. And I tend to do a lot of like steps and physical activity at work. So that got all taken away. So it was really easy just to kind of get my food down and just, I had like my steps were averaging like 3,000, 4,000 a day, which is like nothing. Right. So before it was like 15K most days. So it was, I was eating a little bit more then, but now I pretty much just stuck to about the same calories, and the weight just, has been coming on pretty easily. So in the same situation as Breton too, looking to get to that. It used to be the Edmonton show. Now it's in Calgary. They're going to have a pro division there for all the WNBF classes. So I'm hoping to hit that October 2021, given the world circumstances. And I'm looking at starting to prep like maybe like second week of April, first week of May, something like that, looking at like 26, maybe 27 weeks for that show. And then if the world circumstances align and I have enough money and it seems feasible and it makes sense, maybe Worlds, it would be a big step. But I definitely want to check off that Canadian Pro Show, because I definitely, if that's the only pro show we have, I definitely want to see what happens if I do that, where I stand, and just I feel like that's a good starter pro show as well. So yeah, just kind of taking my way through and doing my best to make some solid gains.
Yeah, that's the thing with us up here. We're limited in options, right? It's either you're going to do the Edmonton show or you got to try to go somewhere else, which right now is not really an option.
Yep.
Yeah. Right on. Boys are on track then. So do you want to see your weight go up anymore before April or May?
Yeah, I want to put because I was doing this last year, getting ready, and I had my what was going to be my shortest off season. I got up to 199, so I mean pretty much the same as I am today. And as I started to diet, I felt like it came off pretty quick, and I was just like, yeah, I maybe going to push the off season a little bit more. So I think I'm looking to slowly gain up to 203, 205 before I start dieting, and then once I start I'll start dieting and it'll come down. I'll be losing 2 pounds a week, for the first little bit, I would think, but I do kind of want to push it up a little bit higher and just hold it there, because I really feel I'm just kind of getting into my groove here. And once you get to, or for me, once I get over 200 pounds, I get some pretty good leverages in the gym and I start to feel really strong. And I just want to milk that out a little bit and hope that it does something positive for me.
Yeah. So you've been, like Brandon said, you've been a pretty good groove with training as well.
Yeah, for the most part. We had a brief gym closure that kind of, I wouldn't say it sidetracked me, but it kind of came out of the blue because we had a spike of cases here. So our gym closed for 11 days. So I trained in my basement for that time. And I was planning to take a maintenance phase, away from the surplus, and just kind of taking a reduction of training volume over the holidays. So I just ended up bumping that up about 2 weeks and just kind of eased off on some things, trained with a little bit less intensity, and just kind of maintained my weight through then. And then as soon as the gyms opened back up, I just got back what I was doing. So, some of my momentum got interrupted just briefly, but it didn't take me that long to get back on track. And I didn't really change my program back when I got to the gym. I just kind of got back on what I was doing and just trying to make logical choices from there. And it's been pretty good.
Yeah, I've been in a good groove myself. So it's good to see the three of us are in a nice, I don't know, I guess good little momentum, right? It's nice when everything goes well. I think this has been my longest stretch of training where, for the most part, everything's felt good. Progress has been pretty linear. Everything's going good. My body, for the most part, feels pretty good. So it's been a pleasant change, because before, I always just felt like there was shit not good. You know what I mean? Like something hurts or just
Yeah.
certain movements don't feel right. Whereas right now it's just like, I think it's a combination of like time off from dieting for a good period of time. Intelligent programming has probably been the biggest variable that I've paid the most attention to, and it's paying off. So it's a pleasant change, which is interesting because at the end of the day, it's probably the biggest thing with our training that contributes to like our progress, but it's the one that's hardest to kind of nail sometimes.
100%. I found it's helped me a lot to study all that N of 1 stuff, and it's definitely kind of filled in some gaps in my physique. Like I never really, like after I learned some of the N1 stuff, I kind of realized that whenever I would sit down to do like a pull up or a chin up, like I never really used my lats very well. So like it's been kind of a game changer for me just to know how to like hit my lats on a lat pull down. Cause I mean, I would do like rows and things like cable rows or T-bar rows or barbell rows. And I was definitely getting some lats there, but never from kind of like this angle, kind of hitting those fibers that go straight down. So I noticed like my back width is a lot more pronounced now. And just little things like that I didn't have going for me before, and just adding a little bit of that execution in and just kind of rolling with it, I think has made a pretty big difference, at least in how my back looks. So I'm happy about that for sure.
Right now you're kind of a low or a higher volume approach with things. There seems to be two camps, right? You're either one or the other. What side are you more in favor of right now?
Right now I would say it's pretty high volume. I looked at how many sets I did for chest this week, and like I called it like 23.5 because I did 3 sets of dips, so that was like kind of half tricep, half lower chest. So I was like 1.5. So I did 23 sets for chest, and that is because that is a weak body part. For other body parts like my quads that I'm not looking to grow as much, I'm doing a little bit less. But for the most part, the body parts I'm trying to grow when I'm in the off season in the surplus, and I feel like training is going well, I'm gonna up the volume to about what I can tolerate and kind of keep it there. And obviously still try and progress loads within the spectrum of having like a high volume. And I may not do every set to failure, but I'm going to track all my loads and try and progress them. So like the whole work set as a project, adds up to a higher amount of total work. When I diet, I will take the volume down a little bit because I don't think I have the capacity to like gain as much from doing all the volume. But like right now, like eating like between like 400 to 500 carbs a day, and my energy is like nonstop, right? And I can just go and go and go. So I find like I will spend that extra time, especially on the body parts that I don't think, tend to grow that well, like my chest and like my back and like my biceps. So I'd say for the most part, I'm in the camp of high volume, but like for most of my clients, I'll ramp it up. Like I'll start them on a moderate amount, then kind of like ease them up into more as they get more used to it. And if they show signs of overreaching or it's not working for them, we'll back it off, right? So.
What's your split right now?
I do 5 days. Pull is the first day, and some calves. So I train like a whole back day with some calves and some biceps. The next day is a push day. The next day is a biceps plus a leg day. So train biceps before my legs because they're something that I identified as lagging. I'm hitting them 3 to 4 times a week now. And then I take an off day, and then I do upper on Friday and then lower on Saturday. So it's pull, push, legs, off, upper, lower, off, 5 days split. So
what about you, Brendan? Which side of the camp have you been more leaning?
Yeah. So, you know what? I would say I'm pretty similar to Connor right now. I'm pretty high volume. There's a couple body parts I really want to work on. Like I was like my upper chest. I've been just absolutely hammering away like my incline barbell bench and like my incline dumbbell. And I've been really just trying to focus on pushing my volume as high as possible on my chest and then bringing it back down in some of my stronger body parts. Like back is a little bit lower right now for me. Obviously, my leg training being men's physique. I don't need to show off my legs, even though I must say, not trying to toot my own horn here. Past couple months, I've been making some great lower body progress. So I've been super happy about that. But really it's been fairly high volume, I would say for the most part, like most body parts within like 12 to 20-ish sets a week for the most part. But I actually just started a new mesocycle and I'm trying out something new, a new split that I've never actually done before. So I'm doing an upper and a lower day, say Monday and Tuesday, and then I'm taking a rest, and then I'm doing upper, lower, and then another upper, and then I'm taking a rest Sunday. But what I'm doing on like kind of my last upper day is I'm doing it like a little bit more, I would say not as high intensity, more like working on kind of more accessory stuff. So making that last upper day a little bit more focused on maybe some chest flies, maybe more lateral raises, more bicep and tricep work. So it's not overly fatiguing. And that's just allowing me to add a little bit extra volume on some of the body parts that I want to work on. And just making sure that I'm recovering and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm running 5 days a week. I'm doing upper, lower, rest, upper, lower, upper. So kind of a different approach than I would normally take. And I'm kind of alternating as well. Like my upper and lower day at the start of the week is going to be a little bit higher intensity, more strength focused. I like kind of working in maybe that, 6 to 8 to 10 rep range. And then as the week goes on, I'm progressing more into like, okay, sets of 12, sets of 15, and then the last day, maybe even sets of 20. And I'm just kind of enjoying that approach of mixing up my volumes throughout the week. Just kind of accumulating things over about usually 6 weeks. I like to go about 6 weeks, then I'll take a deload for me personally.
Yeah, I've been kind of on the other side of the coin from both of you guys. I've been a little bit more of like a lower volume, higher intensity side of things. And it seems to be like paying off. I'm getting like dumb strong for me. Like the numbers I'm doing right now for myself even have kind of surprised me a little bit. But actually today I did a little bit more of a higher volume for today's session. Today's back and delts for me because those are two back mainly, but just a little bit of delts thrown on the end there. But I did a little bit more of a volume, I guess, session today compared to what I would normally do. It was fun. It was a pleasant change, more of like, I guess, like the pump and the contraction and really paying attention to that stuff and just getting, the idea of just moving from A to B, put that to the side a little bit and focus on the quality of the work. So I might actually, switch things up a little bit. I've been doing basically what I've been doing now since we called off prep in the summer. So we're, 5-6 months ish doing the same stuff and it's paid off, but I think a little bit of a change up for the next maybe 5 or 6 months might be fun. I've got a mini cut planned before the wedding in the end of August. So I'm going to probably switch things up from now till April, May before the mini cut and just kind of see what a little bit more volume on certain muscle groups and what that does for me. I did my photos and stuff yesterday. I do them at the beginning of every month and I was pretty happy with things. I still like my back as a whole. I still need more. So I'm thinking, a bit more volume for that will pay off. My lower body, the higher intensity stuff, like just the amount of load I think I'm moving on squats and deadlifts and leg press, like my lower body, glutes and quads and everything, like just looked good. So I'm just going to probably play around with a little bit more volume for my back for this next little period of time and just see what happens with it. I can't see it hurting anything because, like Connor said, eating a lot of food right now, energy is definitely available. So we'll try to put it to use, right?
I was just wondering, when you say like you're on the bit of the spectrum of lower volume, like could you quantify like how many work sets per workout that might be on, say, like a leg day, or like how many sets a week you might do for like quads or for any given muscle group?
So chest, for example, this is my best example because my chest is a very strong muscle group. I do 5 sets a week.
Wow. That is pretty low.
So I do 2. So I have like a push session and I do 2 incline barbell on like a low incline on like I do a top and a back off set for that stuff. And then I do 2 sets of flat dumbbell because flat pressing for me, just my fibers must be very because flat pressing for me, A, I'm really strong at it, and B, like my chest is sore as hell, and I did 5 sets yesterday, right? So just
that's crazy.
With that, it must be just super there for me. For my lower body, so tomorrow, for example, well, I'll give you before because I just switched. I actually just pulled squats out. But before I was doing, so I would do 2 sets of squats, 3 sets of leg extension, just for some isolation, 2 sets of leg press. I would sometimes throw in a third if it felt good. Just that was more of if my knees said yes or no. Then I would do like 2 sets of lunges. Like most things were like 2 sets. So like for example, it would be 10 to 12 sets total, maybe. And that would be for both days. I was running like the stiff leg deadlift for a long time. But I switched that and put just a conventional deadlift now on like my pull day. So I could fit the hack squat in on that leg day when I got the hack squat before I didn't have it at my home gym. So I was doing like 2 main compounds each leg day. So one day was squats and leg press. The other was the stiff leg. And then what the hell was the other one I did? Oh, that plate loaded squat thing I have when I banned it. But then I got the hack squat and I was like, okay, how do I program this in? So I actually talked to AJ Morris about that. And he said, put it on your pull day. So now I only do one deadlift set. Like I only do one set on that pull day, because any more than that, even just that one set, like the next day, my lower back is noticeably fatigued. Not enough that it takes away, but enough that it's there. So just trying to be really smart with that kind of stuff. But like I said, I'm going to probably start doing a lot more volume for my back, just comparatively speaking. Like if I do, like back was definitely higher volume compared to chest for sure, even compared to legs probably. But I think like I'm still rarely sore after doing back. So there's obviously room to do more. It's just a matter of, being in the gym for 2.5 to 3 hours. Sometimes it's just not as attractive as people might think we would want to be in the gym for that long. But I don't know about you guys, but I find about an hour and a half, 2 hours in, I'm like, okay, I'm mentally just done here.
Yeah. And like one of my upper workouts, I think today it took about 2.5 hours. And I honestly don't like being in the gym that long. Like 90 minutes is about my attention span and about all I can really, for the most times, like get away with doing stuff. Like right now, I'd say it's a special circumstance because I'm in such a big surplus, right? I could kind of keep going and going, but any other time, like I would prefer to keep it 90 minutes. And I think it's interesting what you said just about like we all kind of in like a little bit roughly different volume ideologies. And like I think the one thing I learned when I worked with like Brian Miner is that you just need to train enough to get a stimulus, right? And if you got a decent stimulus, you're going to make adaptations the next time around, right? And like some of the people do the stuff where they ramp up the volume, and I think there's logic behind that, it works, but I think like there's a lot more wiggle room to like affect the volume than people think. Like they think like like 10, like only 10 sets will work, anymore won't be enough, or I have to ramp it up throughout the whole music cycle because my body's going to keep adapting. I feel like there's a pretty big, large spectrum of volume that works for a lot of people.
Yeah, this is where, like I'm still working with Cliff. We usually do like a call like this, maybe every 8 to 10 weeks. And the last time I spoke with him, like he knows what I'm doing and stuff like that. He doesn't necessarily program for me, but he gives me advice on things. And he's like, you're like me in that you want to be able to like quantify what you're doing. You want another rep here, or you want 5 more pounds in the bar, and blah, 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 blah. He's like, and that's great. And that's not necessarily wrong. He's like, but there is a time when, focusing on, the contractions and making sure that you're getting full range of motion and really feeling things. He's like your personality type. And he's like, I used to be like this way too, where it's you just want to see more. Right. So if I'm deadlifting 500 pounds, I want to see 505 and then 510 and then 5, and so on and so on and so on. And there's certain movements where that's not necessarily how it's going to work. I think a lateral raise is probably the best example of that, right? Like throughout my training career, 20s and 30s are probably what it will most likely be all the time. Right. But it's just fine tuning the connection with it and using different, volume, styles and rep schemes and, rest pause, drop, like just getting creative with that kind of stuff. And that's where, when Cliff was prepping me and he had me doing a lot of different stuff, like I was doing like 30 rep sets and, that would be before anything heavy and just really getting that mind muscle connection. He's big on that kind of stuff. And I'm still trying to grasp that stuff. I still catch myself, doing things that on paper looks good, but maybe from a physique standpoint, like it's not maybe as good of a bang for my buck. But I think that's part of the game, right? Is constantly trying to figure that out. You talk to guys, that's why I like chatting with people that have been in the sport like him for so long is there's never a right or a wrong way. It's never black and white. And I think your entire training career will be figuring out and fine tuning things. And, one prep, you might find low volume works. The next prep or off season, you might find high volume works. And it's that constant, playing the game really that makes it so fun in a sense. Right.
Yeah. And I wanted to say too, I feel like there's people on like both sides of the spectrum that have like think of someone like, let's take two examples of pro bodybuilders. Like you have like actually he's not a pro, but may as well be a pro, like Jordan Peters, like I know he's doing some different stuff lately, but very driven by progressive overload, like wants to stay in the same program, wants to do everything the same way, wants to hit the PR, considers the workout a failure if you don't get a PR. Then you have someone on the other side of the spectrum, Kai Green, comes in, does whatever he feels, just like focuses on the feel and this and that. And like for him, that works. But for someone else who like likes to, write things down or stuff, that's going to seem like a mess if you just like listen to your body and go with the flow. Right. So I feel like a lot of the stuff you have to meet in the middle, and you have to like, you don't want to always be changing your program, but sometimes a movement that you once got a lot out of no longer serves you. Right. And you need to move on. And, if you're trying to always go for progressive overload, but you keep injuring yourself, that's going to shorten your career, right? You're not going to get very far, right? So you always get to kind of like meet in the middle with a lot of these like extreme views, I find.
That's like,
squatting
for me is a prime example of that. I've never felt good on squatting as good as I felt this last cycle of training. And it showed in the numbers. Like I PR'd, I did like the best set of my life, 405 for 10 back squat. If I go to the grave and someone's like, what's your best set? What's your most favorite set? I think that would be it. It was awesome. Right. And then I got up to 455 for 4 was the most I'd done ever in my life. And I hit it there a couple weeks ago, but the last week or two up to that week, my body was saying like, hey, I don't know if squatting is favoring us right now. Your knees are a little achy, your lower back's a little achy. And I don't feel my quads when I squat. I'll be honest with you. But, when I look at, like I mentioned earlier, when I look at like my glutes, for example, when I took my photos, like I cannot deny the changes that have been made there. And it's squatting definitely had a, what the hell just popped up?
We got upgraded.
What?
Unlimited minutes now.
That's right.
But anyways, yeah, like squat had favored me up until a point, right? And now I spoke with Cliff and I said, hey, this is what's going on with squats. What do you recommend? And he's like, if I'm being honest, if I had to pick something, I would pick lunges over squatting any day of the week. So I found that super interesting. So now I've been doing like a barbell reverse lunge alternating. So he's like, you'll still get that spinal loading, but this is going to be obviously a much lighter load. So you're going to get probably that little bit of a break on your lower back and knees. And he's like, in my opinion, you're going to get a lot more stimulus for, your quads, your glutes and stuff like that. All those little stabilizer muscles, you don't realize how wobbly you are until you do something single leg. Right. And, the first time I did those lunges, it was humbling, that's for sure. But yeah, it's just playing the game.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add in, just what you guys are talking about progressing wise. I'm similar to you, Leroy, in terms of like every week, like when I go in the gym, it's like, okay, I hit this number last week. I'm coming in and I'm adding 5 pounds. Like, doesn't matter what's happening. I'm adding 5 pounds or, I'm adding a rep. And that's kind of the mindset I've had for a long time now. But one thing I really do find that I'm benefiting from, especially over the past few months, I've been really playing around with, okay, you know what? I think that my form is going to be sacrificed a little bit if I do add that extra rep or, that extra 5 pounds. So even just maintaining the same amount of volume for maybe a week, 2, 3 weeks on the same exercise, same rep scheme, but just trying to improve my execution a little bit, just being like, okay, you know what? I'm really going to try and, focus on my mind muscle connection and my chest for this set, and just even improving the execution over the weeks, even if the volume's not going up, I found is something that I've benefited from. And even if I'm videotaping my sets from week 3 to week 1, if everything's the exact same, but my execution looks better, maybe my range of motion's a little bit better, controlling the weight a little bit better, I think that's still a smart way to progress as well. And that's something that I've been trying to implement a little bit more, rather than getting overly aggressive and focusing on just the numbers. Putting a little bit more weight on the execution and the mind muscle connection as well, I think is important.
It's funny, all the things we're talking about right now is it was ignored for a little while, and it was the camp of progressing from like a load standpoint, but now we're maturing as athletes. That's what it is, right? And you realize, and like I said earlier, talking to some older athletes, right, and following like Nunez and Cliff and Brandon Wattis, like all these guys that have been in this for a good period of time and have gone a long way within the sport. Just figuring out, okay, how do you do this, right? How do you play this bodybuilding game as effectively as you can, right? And if we're being honest, me deadlifting 1 5-rep set a week, is that giving me as much benefit? Hard to say, but I like it. It feels good. I'm happy with that, and we'll find out when I step on stage again, right? And if we get what we want, good. If not, we do it all again and we figure out how to make it better.
I thought it was cool too, what you said, Breton, just there about improving like form and mind muscle connection. And like I wanted to point out too that a lot of times you come to the gym and what you did last week and you're looking to improve upon it, but you might find like you can't, it's just not quite there yet. And I think a lot of people like they just question like what they're doing and think they're doing things wrong. Like, do I need to deload? Do I need more volume? Do I need to switch a program? Do I need to switch the exercise? But a lot of times it's just you haven't made enough adaptations just to make to go to that next step yet. It doesn't mean you didn't get a stimulus from your workout and you didn't improve. It's just you didn't improve as much as you thought. Like today I was doing some like decline barbell presses and I was sitting in like the 6 to 8 range, right? And I didn't make a progression within the first few sets, but I was like, 6 to 8 reps, that's pretty heavy. Like going from like doing like a set of 6 to a set of 7 on that is like a decently big progression, right? So I got upset about it a little bit at first when I was like, I thought the weight felt a little bit like I had a little bit more control. So there's probably some adaptation there, just wasn't enough to like get me that extra rep or get me another 5 pounds. So you just got to be patient sometimes, right?
Absolutely, man. That's just it. Just like you said, sometimes, yeah, you need a little bit more time for that adaptation to occur, especially us obviously being a lot more advanced now, than years and years ago. Progressions are going to come a lot quicker. I think just having a little bit more patience, playing the long game, not forcing things, obviously trying to avoid any injury, because as you guys know, in this game, it's such a long-term game. Usually the best bodybuilders are the one who avoid injury. It's not the ones who can progress as quickly as possible in 1 year. It's the people who are like, listen, I've been training for 15 years and I haven't had one serious injury. Those are usually the best ones because they have the patience and they know how to intelligently increase their volume, or, know when to back off or know when to kind of ramp things up.
Absolutely.
Of the three of us, who stays the most injury free throughout their bodybuilding career? I'm gonna bet I'm the most banged up. Let's be honest right now. I'm the one that's all fucked up. I can't get into poses because my back's all janked up, but whatever.
I've been good lately. I used to have a lot of little niggles. Like I remember there was actually when I was in university, I was probably about Breton's age. I was doing deadlifts and I just had the most like violent, like really bad form on deadlifts. And I think I was doing like, I decided it would be a good idea to do like a drop set. So I was banging out like maybe 275 for like just reps on reps. And I kind of like extended my neck and I get this really bad headache, man, really, really bad. And I didn't really know what I was doing at this point. Like this was before any show or anything. It was just starting the first few years of training. Got a really bad headache, and it literally lasted for almost like 6 or 7 weeks straight. And I almost had to drop out of university, and it was tough at the time because I was like a music student, and it was always on. It was some nerve in my neck or something, right? And even if I would walk up a set of stairs, I get this like really bad headache. And and that's like one of the earliest things that like taught me like you can really mess yourself up doing this. Like you got to watch it.
I popped a blood vessel in my eye not long ago.
Any headaches? Any problems with it?
No. It was I didn't even know. Me and my fiance were sitting on the couch and she looked at me and she goes, "Your eye's bleeding." And I'm like, "What?" And so I go like this and like there's nothing on my hand obviously. She's like, "Your eye's bleeding." So I go in the washroom and sure enough, like in the corner of my eye, there was a bit of a a little thirst, you could say, but
Nice.
that's no worse than there now.
Yeah. See, it's actually funny. Unlike probably you guys, I was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of when I first started training and stuff. I probably could have progressed quicker than I could have, but I was so just in the back of my mind, so worried to get injured. And I was just so like, I was Mr. Form, like for most of my lists. Like if you kind of look through my old videos, I think most of them are pretty like ideal textbook. Like they look pretty good because I was so worried about that I kind of almost took it easy, more on like the lower end of the spectrum versus like going out and cranking ridiculous amounts of weight and using really shitty form. So I'm thankful for that now. But actually, yeah, it was kind of funny because it was, like I said, it was the opposite of you guys. It was almost myself having to tell myself like, okay, dude, your form looks fine. I think you can kind of get more aggressive and increase the weight. But looking back, I mean, I don't really necessarily think that was a bad thing. Kind of put that technique first into my head, and that's kind of progressed over the years. So just something I thought I'd add in.
Fine line, right? You know, do you need to be 100% perfect on everything? No, but you know, there's always a spot for a little bit of loose form here and there. But I think if that takes up the bulk of your training, it's probably not a good idea. I think bent over rows is the one that raises the most controversy online. But you know, you see some people that have like arguably sloppier form than others, and they look pretty good from a physique development wise. But then you've got the other guy that is, you know, touch the floor, pause, right to the chest, pause, like, you know what I mean? And his back looks good too. So
Absolutely.
back to what we were saying, there's no real perfect right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was very, very, very careless at first, and I kind of was like the stereotypical like guy, like, oh, I know how to lift weights, you know, it's like, you know, it's in my blood, I know how to do it, and yeah, really, really bad form in almost everything. And I had to kind of go back and just take myself from square one, and I'd still been just doing it even over the last few years. With the execution stuff, even with like the stuff from N1 being kind of like the cherry on top in terms of like just keeping everything perfectly in alignment, like setting up the conditions of the exercise to perfectly train the muscle group that you want to. So it's still been a refinement process, but I feel like I probably like got lucky that I didn't get hurt more often. But fortunately, like I was never very like strong naturally, so I never played with too many loads that were very hazardous. But I did hurt my back multiple times. Like I remember I did at the end of university, I was training with some power lifter and I like wrapped my knees and did like a reverse band squat with like 405. And I got it up, but my back was sore for almost like 8 months after that. And I couldn't back squat for a long time. It was really hard. I actually did my first prep with a back injury, and my quads, which were really big before, like I just didn't know how to train them other than a back squat. So I couldn't back squat. So I would try like front squats and like other stuff, but it didn't work. And like my legs looked total garbage for show. But yeah, I guess I got a few lessons early and I was like, I got to clean this up. Can't be doing this anymore.
I only ever done my shit up once, and it was deadlifting, but it wasn't my fault. I did placement in college at I guess it was kind of like a CrossFit gym, but they would run like powerlifting classes and personal training and stuff like that. So they would do the powerlifting classes 4 times a week. So I would do them as well, just to train. And the head instructor, when I was there, he's like, let's test your maxes now at the first week. And then at the end of the 4 weeks, we'll test them again and I'll program you for 4 weeks. So I was like, okay, cool. Like it's an opportunity to learn from him, different training styles and stuff. And at the time I was definitely more into bodybuilding. So it was an opportunity to learn like some powerlifting stuff. So he's like, okay, you know, with your deadlifts, you're really slow off the floor, but once you can get it moving, you're usually pretty good, which is the same now. That's never changed for me. So he's like, we're going to do deficit deadlifts, so that it changes the range of motion and the mechanics of it a bit, which will help you. I said, okay, sweet, sounds good to me. So everything he programmed for me was percentage of 1RM. So I obviously now knowing back, you know, in hindsight, but he had programmed everything of my percentage of 1RM off the floor, not from a deficit. So for anybody watching that's not done deficit deadlifts, they're harder, right? So your 1RM should be quite a bit lower. I didn't know that at the time. So whatever my max was off the floor was he was prescribing my training volume from. So I remember it was the first week and it was like a 3x3 and it was like 70, 80, and 90% of my 1RM or something like that. So the first set, I warm up, no problems, and I'm warming up on the deficit, and then I do my first set of 3. I couldn't tell you what it was now. And I remember thinking like, man, this is heavier than normal. I'm a deficit, but I didn't know. And then I did the second set, and I felt my back just kind of like, like just something's not quite right. Yeah, just something weird. And I was like, shit, like, I don't know. Well, I got one more set, no problem. And I remember I did the third set, and I felt like if this is my back, I felt something go like this, like something wiggled like in my spine, and I dropped it. I got it like halfway up, and I dropped it, and I fell to the floor, and I couldn't sit. Like, I laid flat. I couldn't sit up for about 25 minutes. Wow. And I never got it looked at. I could not ever tell you what had happened, but for probably 8 months after that, I could do very little legs. I didn't deadlift for probably well over a year because I was too scared. Like, I just physically, like, I would get anxiety thinking about it. And that's the worst thing I've ever done. I've only ever had like dumb little shit, over the course of my training career. But that was the bad. And I remember I did placement in Kingston, which was about a 40-minute drive from my hometown. And the girl I was seeing went to college here, so I would stay here during the week and go home on the weekends. Well, of course, this was a Friday, so I had to drive home, and I had to recline my seat back because I couldn't sit up straight. Drive the 40 minutes home on the highway, and my back's just writhing in pain the whole time. It's terrible.
Jeez.
Yeah, I had some experiences like that too. Like, I remember when I was first in the gym and I tried to deadlift, it was like 2 plates, and I was like, I can do this. And it was a similar experience too. Like, I think it was like a really bad strain and just some of the lower back, like lumbar, like erector spine fibers, like, because you look at those muscles, is they're so weak and poorly leveraged to actually do any work. And that's why, like, once you get better at squatting and deadlifting, it becomes more of a stimulus to like your glutes, right? Like your glutes and like a bit of quads to pop off the floor, because they're a little bit leveraged to do that. But a lot of people, like, I didn't have like those muscles like developed at all. Like, I just like tried to pull with my back, and they just like, I could, like, yeah, I even have some like a little bit of scar tissue like in that area where I think I did just kind of like tore slightly, and it just took them quite a long time to heal. It's probably similar with you, Leroy.
That stuff's so much technique too, right? Like, that's one thing I've learned this last little while of really progressing that stuff. Like, when I watch things back, it's just like posing. Like, when you do a side chest, like your hand is going to land on the same spot. You've done it so many times. You set your feet the exact same spot. Like everything's it's muscle memory, right? And that's the same that I attribute to that kind of stuff. Because I've had a lot of people ask, like, "Oh, you're progressing so well. Like, what's the deal?" And I said, like, I've really, like, obviously I'm getting stronger. There's other factors at play, but I'm really figuring out like my mechanics for the lift and like where my feet need to go, when to breathe, when to brace, and all that kind of stuff, right? Whereas, other bodybuilding stuff, you can get away with, not being so conscious of how you're doing it. Whereas, a deadlift, like, if you're not set properly, like, you're either going to hurt yourself or you're not going to get the bar off the floor. Same with a squat. Like, if my feet aren't where they need to be, I'm going to be off. If I don't brace properly, I'm going to get buried. Like, there's so many things that go into it, right?
Absolutely.
So, boys, let's close this out with, I guess, the next phase of the off season. Before, I guess, both of you guys will start prep. So, Connor, you mentioned you want to see the weight go up a little bit more.
Absolutely. So just the goal for me is to just stay at the steady surplus. I definitely don't want to see it be up to 205, by mid-January. I want to just slowly get up there and just try and stay consistent. I've got like my lifts kind of like set in stone of what I just want to keep doing that I think I'm getting a good return on investment with. So just being steady with those and keeping up with them, and just hope that it pays off in terms of having a little bit more density in my physique when I diet down come April, May.
Breton, yourself?
Yeah, so I have an idea roughly of what I'd like to do. I think after this mesocycle, so in the next, say, 4, 5, 6-ish weeks, I may pull the trigger on a quick little mini cut. I'm like 192, 193-ish in the morning. I'd like to get to be around low 180s just to kind of clean things up, improve body composition a little bit, and then maybe even just run maintenance for a little bit, and then really figure out what is going on, where we're at with COVID and the shows and everything like that. Because ideally, I haven't really done this before, but I would like to actually try to just start off at a leaner body composition and just say, okay, because just being men's physique, I don't need to come in quite as conditioned, obviously, as bodybuilding. So I would love to be able to be like, okay, let's do like an 18-week prep. Maybe 16 weeks, a little bit shorter, be not necessarily more aggressive, but just kind of get the job done and get in and get out more or less versus in the past, I feel like I've stretched things on so long that I definitely lost muscle in the process. So I just like to play around with that. And all my other preps, I've just started, quite heavy, probably in that 15 plus body fat percentage range. And to get a little bit lower, I think would be a nice thing to try out. So essentially what I'm looking at is potential mini cut here soon, maybe a little bit of a maintenance phase, see where we're at with COVID, and then pull the trigger on that 2021 prep.
For me this year, because I don't start till 2022, so ideally this shit's long behind us by then. But I'm morning weight, mid 180s. I'd like to probably see 190 in the next few months, but like super slow. When I last chatted with Cliff, we're pretty much agreed that this is kind of top end for me right now in the scheme of things, but we have a little bit more time. So if it goes up a little bit, cool. If not a huge deal. And then mini cut for the wedding, which would probably see me down to like 170, 175. In that range, it'll just be depending on how aggressive it needs to be and stuff like that. And then, so that would put me end of August, and then September to end of the year, maybe back up around 180, kind of a tighter spot than I am now, and then be in a good position to start prep for 2022.
I like it.
Nice.
And then hopefully join the pro ranks with you gentlemen.
We'll see you there.
Then we'll be on opposite years, and then it'll just be a shit show.
Yeah.
You're gonna luck out though. You're gonna get the Boston year, way less travel.
Nice.
And then you never know, boys. A couple years, I would love to try with bodybuilding. I would.
You can do it, man. You can do it.
Yeah, I think it's always one of those things. I want more time. I want more size. But you know what? I think one of these years, I'm just going to pull the trigger, just give it a shot, and maybe not even really announce it necessarily. Just kind of be like, oh, guess what? I ended up trying bodybuilding, and just kind of go from there. But because it's just been something I've been itching at. I would like to. And like I said, my lower body progress has been so great lately, and I've been loving training legs that you guys could see me on that stage. You never know. Never know.
Well, like the way the WNBF judges too, they go so highly on symmetry. So if you have a really small waist and wide shoulders, like which you do, Breton, like more than us two, like you have that like crazy like V going out, like I think you would do pretty well, honestly, especially if you come a condition that they want. Like I couldn't see why you couldn't, eventually win a pro card in bodybuilding as well too.
I like it. You never know, boys. You can see me there.
Appreciate your time as always. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. A little Canadian muscle off season, or whatever the hell I'm going to call this thing. We thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.